Thanks for the opportunity to be here today. We thank you for a time just set aside and consider the cross, consider the great, amazing gift that Jesus gave us, and through His blood and His body, and for that we just come to worship. I do pray you'll speak to us today through your word. Allow some freedom in people's lives. Give us the courage to make some decisions to maybe reverse trends or just stop the enslavement we've allowed ourselves to be a part of in our topic today. Bless this time, we ask, in Jesus' name. Amen. So it happened on a day back in 1982. A truck driver who lived in the Los Angeles area named Larry Walters had this great idea. What he decided to do is he got himself a lawn chair in the backyard of his girlfriend's house. He anchored it to the ground. He went and found 42 weather balloons at a surplus store, filled them with helium, and he grabbed himself a handful of peanut butter sandwiches and a BB gun. And he figured when he was ready to come down, he was going to float around, and when he was ready to come down, he would just shoot each balloon with a BB gun, and it would kind of help him land safely on the ground. Great plan. I mean, it sounds really good in concept, but something happened when he let loose of the anchor on the chair. He shot up in the air so quickly, it actually blew the glasses off of his face, and before he knew it, he was 1,000 feet in the air, 2,000 feet, eventually leveled off around 8,000 feet in the air with these 42 weather balloons and a lawn chair. Okay? True story, really happened, right? Actually, Google the guy's name, Larry Walters. You'll see news stories, you'll see pictures. I mean, it's all over the place, right? And what he was planning to be this nice little gentle ride had him soaring thousands of feet up in the air. I would not feel, I mean, I barely feel secure in some of the, amusement park rides, but like a richly old little folding chair with weather balloons up in the air. I mean, it sounds crazy. He happened, he's near LA, right? So he's near the airport. At some point, he floats toward there. 2 airline pilots actually reported seeing him. I said, can you imagine that? You're like coming in and you're looking out the window and you're going, Martha, there's a dude on a lawn chair out there. I mean, I can't even imagine what goes through someone's mind when you see this. Well, his plan failed because this BB gun, as he would shoot the balloons, he thought it was time to get down, right? The weather balloons are thicker than he thought. So the BBs are just bouncing off the weather balloons. So he just kept going for a while. Finally, they had to get a helicopter and lower somehow a cable down through the balloons and attach to his chair, and somehow they figured out a way to get him down. And once he landed, he was a little embarrassed, and he was promptly arrested. You just don't do that, right? What he intended to be a pleasant ride ended up going way out of control and doing way more than he ever expected to have happen, right? Now, in our topic today, I think that happens to a lot of families. I don't know how many adults I have talked to through the years who kind of have this same feeling that they look at their finances. I mean, they take an honest look at really where they really are financially, and they realize what started out as just maybe a few minor purchases, as something that would maybe, they could control, becomes this 8,000 foot in the air, out of control experience on a flimsy lawn chair. And they don't know how they got there, really, but they know they're in trouble, and they're a little bit embarrassed, and they feel a little bit foolish about their financial health. My story started as a teenager. I was 14, 15 years old, somewhere in there, and taking pictures for the newspaper at school and the yearbook. And somewhere along the line, as I was getting involved with this whole photography thing, I got my eye on a camera that I thought would be like, this would be the thing that would change the world, right? I would be a better photographer. The yearbook would look better. The newspaper would look better. It would surely put me in line for a Pulitzer Prize, for photography at some point. So I needed to have this camera. And what any respectable, 14, 15-year-old kid does, I called up my dad and say, Dad, would you help me buy this camera? And he says, yes, I will. Now, he was on the board of directors of the Mason City Government Employees Credit Union. So he picks me up, he takes me to the credit union, he talks to a gal named Carol, which is awful that this many years later I still know her name because I had a long relationship with this woman, right? We sign a few papers. They give me a check for, I don't remember that. It's actually probably in a file, to be honest, but around $267 or something like that. And with little monthly payments of, I don't know, 15 to 20, I don't know what it was, $15 to $20 that came out of my paper route money that I had as a 14, 15-year-old boy. So my dad took me to the credit union and said, this is how you manage money. You just get a loan. You want something, you borrow it. They have all the money you need, okay? And I learned everything I needed to know there. So I took my camera home, had all kinds of fun with that. And that lesson that I learned that day, when I was 14 or 15 years old, took me years to unlearn. I mean, that's just how I did life. That's just how I handled my finances. Because, see, the one thing that my dad forgot to tell me that day, and it's something that took me years, but I finally figured this out, is that debt is voluntary slavery. You heard the scripture that Brandon read earlier, right? That the rich rules over the poor. The borrower is a slave to the lender. When you borrow money, the company or the person that you borrow from becomes your owner, right? You are somewhat of a slave to them. Now, our first instinct is to think, well, this is America. We don't do slavery here. Of course we're not slaves. That's just silly, right? To which Solomon would respond probably, well, when you get your paycheck, as you go out and work your job, who decides where the money goes? Is it yours, or does someone tell you how much of it's theirs? How many hours are you working for that company that lent you money? I mean, who tells you how many hours you have to work? Kind of sounds like slavery to me. That would be Solomon's pushback. Now, when I was 15 years old, and if I decided one morning, getting up at 4:30 in the morning delivering newspapers, I'm kind of over that. And I called the credit union, and I said, hey, credit union, Carol, really appreciate you helping me out with this camera thing. That's really cool, but I don't really feel like delivering newspapers anymore. Sorry, that's just kind of what I've decided. What would they have responded? Well, I don't care what you feel like doing. You're going to deliver newspapers, or you're going to give me that camera back. I mean, you really have two options here. We own you, son. That would have been their response. I was a slave voluntarily at 15 years old, and really didn't look back for years, trying to get out of that slavery thing. Now, if you have a mortgage, if you have maybe a car or two, a credit card or two, maybe a student loan or two, those companies dictate to you exactly how much money you need to make in order to pay them back each month. They own part of you. They own your money is time, right? You got to invest time to make money. They own that time, that portion of your day every single day. You don't have an option. You must work for them. So you get a job, maybe you put aside your tithe, how much you're going to give to the church, you put aside your retirement, you put aside the bills that you owe that month, you put aside your living expenses, you got to have food, you need gas and electricity, all that stuff, right? Whatever you have left is yours to decide what to do with. There's your freedom. There's your little bit you have left. The problem is that with so many households today, there's very little left. There's just not that much left that is our freedom. That is ours to dictate, that is ours to decide with. We are completely owned by someone else. We can't afford to just quit our jobs, most of us. We can't afford to just go on vacation on a whim. We can't afford to retire. We can't afford to just go out and buy a new car every other day if we feel like it. We can't. We don't have the ability. Some of us probably maybe even struggle with like buying school clothes for the upcoming year. Like, how are we going to pay for this? How are we going to make this happen, right? Because somebody else owns us and tells us what to do with our money, what to do with our time, what to do with our life. I have had so many conversations over the years with people saying, man, I would love to be able to support the church more. I would like to help the church out. I really love the community of believers here. It's a great place, and I would love to help it financially. I can't. because my owners tell me I can't. I'm a slave. They don't say it in those words. I'm a slave to MasterCard, and MasterCard says, I know, I owe them first. I'm a slave to the Ford dealership or whoever, and they say, no, you're going to pay us before you do any silly thing like help a church. I mean, come on, right? They don't care. They don't care. And so many families I've talked to over the years, just feel like they're just enslaved to debt. To debt. I've been there. I know the feeling. How ironic that a nation that prides itself in freedom, right? That we live in this amazing America, home of the free, home of the brave, right? Where people have fought so bravely so we can enjoy this freedom, that we use that freedom to voluntarily put ourselves in slavery. But we've all done it. We've all done it. Every single one of us. We sell our souls to complete strangers in return for purchasing things we really can't afford, maybe don't even need. And so while we walk around talking about freedom, there's this stranger in khaki pants and a polo a few hundred miles away, sitting in a cubicle, telling us how many hours we need to work this week for him, or they're going to come get our stuff. We've enslaved ourselves. The borrower has become slave to the lender. Maybe that's why Proverbs 11:15 says, whoever puts up security for a stranger will surely suffer harm. How many times have you, Brandon mentioned it controls your thoughts, right? How many times have you woke up in the middle of the night or stayed up late thinking, how am I going to pay my bills? How do I pay rent this month? How do I pay the mortgage this month? Car payment? I mean, how many times has that happened to you? We'll suffer harm. He who hates striking hands in pledge is secured. I've noticed the less money I owe, the more free I feel. Just the way it is. Just the way it is. Proverbs 22 elaborates on that a little bit. Be not one of those who give pledges, but put up security. Who put up security for debts? If you have nothing with which to pay, why should your bed be taken from under you? If you're not lending stuff out, no one's going to take my camera if I don't get a loan for it. If I paid cash ahead of time, it's mine. Then you're not going to take it from me, right? Then there's Proverbs 17, one who lacks sense gives a pledge and puts up security in the presence of his neighbor. Now I was taught the opposite of that. Most of us probably were taught the opposite of that growing up. I was taught that it doesn't lack sense to borrow money, but that it makes sense to borrow money. That's just what you do. That's what you do. You get another loan and you add more to it. But I've since learned, like many things in my life, that sometimes I am wrong and the Bible is right. And I've learned to trust the Bible over my own instinct or my own upbringing. And this is one of those areas. It took me a while to really turn around in my life. Debt entraps you, it enslaves you, it hinders what you can do for God, and it hinders your ability to help other people. And if that doesn't in itself help you avoid debt, debt also gives you a false sense of wealth. You just feel wealthier when you drive around something you can't afford, or live somewhere you can't afford, or buy clothes that you can't afford and put on a credit card, right? Proverbs 13:7 says, one pretends to be rich yet has nothing. Another pretends to be poor yet has great wealth. Most of us tend to be the first part of that verse. I'm going to pretend to be rich, even though I'm really not. But I look it. I'm feeling good, right, in this. It's a dangerous, dangerous thing to be someone with a modest income trying to look and live like someone with a higher income. It'll get you in trouble every single time. It'll eventually ensnare you and entrap you. It's been proven in so many studies, I'm just after another, that someone using a credit card will spend anywhere from 12 to 18% more than if they were using cash. You just spend more. It just doesn't hurt as much when you just slide the old card, right? Celtics management, basketball management discovered they could literally charge double the price for their game tickets if people used credit cards versus cash. It didn't hurt so much. I'll just buy it online, no big deal. That's less painful than spending half that much on cash at the window. Even McDonald's, when they started having debit and credit to fast food restaurants, they saw the average ticket will go from $4.50 to $7 when people use a debit card or a credit card. It just doesn't hurt so much. You just slide it, put in your number, go off, and you buy more. Throw an extra biscuit on there, throw an extra burger, whatever it is you're getting, right? You just spend more. Credit cards make it easier for impulse buys. If you're on a cash system and you don't have your cash with you and you're at the mall and you see a sweater that you just have to have, you don't get it because you don't have the cash. But if you have a card, you think, well, what's this one sweater? You do that 100 times over the course of a few years, it adds up quickly. You spend more money that you don't have just because you're using a credit card. If you've ever listened to Dave Ramsey, I was actually listening to him this week. I was driving around on the radio, and he explains this so well and so passionately. He says, you actually feel the pain when you use cash to buy things. Not so much when you use a credit card. You just feel like you have more money when you're using plastic, so you just spend more. Right? Okay. All right. You get it, right? I mean, debt's bad. Stay away from it. Okay. I'm not here to make everybody feel guilty. That's just kind of where we've been raised, where maybe you are, and maybe where you're trying to crawl out of. And that's what I want to look at. How do you get out of this thing? How do you get out? Let's say you're already 8,000 feet in the air, and you got the BB gun. You're like, well, that plan didn't work. I thought I'd just pay this off each month, and I never did, and now I'm in trouble. What do you do? Well, I'm not going to get into super detail here, but I'm going to give you some answers to help you get out. Develop a plan is the first thing. Develop a plan. Jesus says in Luke 14, "For which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he's laid a foundation and is not able to finish it, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, 'This man began to build and was not able to finish.'" Now, Jesus is really talking about the cost of being a Christ follower, right? Like, before you decide to follow me, understand what I'm really asking. But he's using, as an example, money. And it's a very solid principle here. Why would you start building something unless you know you can pay for it? Why would you make a big purchase, a car, a house, build a tower, whatever, and unless you've considered how much that's really going to cost you rather than just looking at how much per month you're paying? Why don't you look at the bigger picture to see if you really, really want to do that? Because poor planning will always get you into trouble. Now Cheryl and I, my wife, and I are currently in the market for a car. Okay? And we've been planning this for some time. We've been sneaking money aside with the idea we'll pay cash for the next car that we get. However, the replacement is happening a little bit sooner than we anticipated. We knew it could happen. You drive around cars, we haven't had car loans for years, right? And so it was just in the last couple of years, like, okay, we better start saving because obviously our car is going down. So now we're in this dilemma of, do we just buy a car that isn't all that awesome, knowing our other car really isn't all that awesome? Do we get a loan? So it's one thing to say, yeah, we're going to do this. It's another thing to really plan it out and really, really live it out. So we're in that dilemma right now, and I waver back and forth depending on the moment. So it's interesting. So I did a search, a Google search the other day, just for a random car. Just what does a $20,000 car look like? This picture, by the way, is popping up on every Facebook page I have now, every time because I've Googled it once, right? This is actually, we're not looking at this car. I don't even know what it is. It's just a car. It was a white car to me, right? But it's actually just a couple miles from here at a car dealer, and it's about $20,000. I just wanted to have a picture of a $20,000 car. So here's a $20,000 car. Is it better to pay cash or to get a loan? Well, obviously pay cash if you have it. If you pay cash, you got to have a plan to get there in the first place, right? So here's the difference in this. Let's say you pay $20,000 for your car. You get a loan at 4%. I don't know if that's what they really are. Again, I Googled that number. It's been a long time since I've had a car payment. So you get a loan at 4%. You're going to pay about $370 a month for 60 months, so 5 years. And you're actually going to end up paying about $22,000, a little over $22,000 for this car. So that means you have spent $2,000 for the privilege of buying that car. It's just, imagine yourself with $2,100 bills
putting it in the toilet and flushing, okay? Y'all feel good about that? Yeah. That's the cost of just the privilege of them owning you for 5 years, saying, by the way, you owe me $370, right? You know that, right? You better get to work. You better put some overtime in because the car payment's due, right? That's them owning you. That's just the price of doing that. Simply because I failed to plan properly ahead of time, knowing I was going to need a car one of these days. On the other hand, if you save, the cash end, if you save $370, same amount of money per month for 54 months, which if you notice, that's like 6 months less than if you bought it with credit, and you pay cash for it at that same time, you have saved the $2,000 and you pay it off 6 months earlier. So already it's looking better. I mean, just looking at it, it's like, yeah, I'd like to do that. Now, consider the fact you're paying cash for a car, so it's going to be a little more painful, right? It's much harder to write a check for $20,000 or put all those $100 bills down than it is to just sign a paper for, oh yeah, I'll pay you $370 a month. Okay, it's much more painful. So at least I'm thinking from my perspective, if I have $20,000 in my account and I'm going to buy a car, I'll probably find one a little less than that. I'll find that I can live with one. Let's say you pay $17,000 for a car. So maybe you've talked them down, or maybe you just decided $20,000 hurts because you're paying for the whole thing, right? So you're going to pay a little bit less. So you're paying $17,000 for a car instead of $20,000. You don't spend the $2,000 on interest. That's $5,000 you didn't spend. You follow me? I'm not a mathematician, but you know, I play one sometimes on TV. So you saved $5,000. Now let's say that you're married, husband, wife. You got 2 cars going, right? So now you do that for 2 cars. You've just saved $10,000. At least you didn't spend $10,000. You follow me? Right? You haven't spent $10,000. Now let's say you each buy a new car, or whatever age car that would cost you about that much, every 4 years. So you're saving $10,000 every 4 years. By your 40th anniversary, if you think about this, you have saved $100,000. Now that sounded big dollars. Just because you decided to pay cash rather than go the easy way and do the credit thing. Now, I know those are big numbers, and you're thinking, well, 40 years, that's forever. Cheryl and I will be celebrating our 40th anniversary in about 8 years, okay? It'd be really cool if I had that $100,000 sitting in the bank of my car money in my never spent fund. But I don't, and I have already broke the news to Cheryl. I will not be writing you a $100,000 check for our 40th anniversary because we didn't plan well. We've never paid cash. Except in the very, very beginning, there was a $400 car. That's different. That was a long time ago. So we decided to start reversing that process now, right? So now whatever we have, and we don't have $20,000 saved. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of car we show up with next week. We're hoping it has tires. It's a planning issue. The point is, look how much money you can save if you just decide not to be a slave to the lender, and you do a little bit of planning, do a little bit of organizing, you know. Now throw on top of that credit card debt, things that you just buy on credit rather than cash, furniture, whatever, all the household expenses that the credit kind of gets you out of control. Think of the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars over your married life that you will never spend if you plan properly. That's like kingdom money that's being flushed down the toilet every single month. Man, think how many poor people you could feed. Think how many homeless people you could give a tent to. You know what I'm saying? It's how much, and I keep flushing the toilet. You only have to flush it once, right? It's our poor planning that prevents us from really doing some good kingdom work and blessing other people and not being a slave, So develop a plan. Not going to get into the details. Follow a budget. Put aside money in savings. Be the boss of your own money. Not let it be the master of you. You be the master of it. And here's the deal. We have people. There's no way I can, in a Sunday morning sermon, get into too much detail. But we have people who would love to help you with that. If that's one of those things that just makes you beat your head against the wall and think, I don't even know how to start. Brandon, who came up and talked earlier, it's a passion with him. He loves helping people plan and help them make these steps that will change your life and change your ability to do kingdom things. And a lot of it boils down to this last little area, to be disciplined with your money. It's a budget, actually knowing what you're spending, and he can help you create a budget in your life. Somebody said once, a budget's a piece of paper that doesn't keep you from spending, it just makes you feel guilty about it. Okay. Let that one soak in. I used to have really elaborate budgets. We have a budget again. We went a few years without one. We're doing a budget again the last year or two. But I used to have like elaborate ones. Like when we were first married, I had like a 3-page folding out thing, and it had all these percentages. But my problem was, like the miscellaneous area was like always negative $1,500. And Cheryl's like, well, how much money do we have in the car fund? Well, there's $800 there. It's like, oh, well, I have minus $1,500 over. So it didn't work. I mean, it only works if you're disciplined and you actually follow the thing. Someone else said a budget is a formula for determining you need a pay raise. Most of us don't really need a pay raise. We just need to be more disciplined when it comes to handling our own finances. And that's what I say. That could be that's kind of painful for me because I know the principles. I've read the books. I've attended the seminars. I've gone to the classes. I've created all these budgets. My problem is I haven't always disciplined myself to follow it until recently. Then I'm like, okay, dude, you're getting old, right? I mean, at some point, the line ends, right? We got to get this thing figured out. And so now I'm much more disciplined than I was. See, Solomon knew what he was saying when he said in Proverbs 13, poverty and disgrace come to those or him who ignores instruction. So I know all that stuff, great. If I don't follow it, what good is it? What value has it been to the kingdom or myself or my family or my children? None. Proverbs 25, a man without self-control is like a city broken into and left without walls, but you're vulnerable to attack. You just don't have the ability, you're trapped, right? A person with a credit card and no self-control is a disaster waiting to happen. And some of you have experienced that. You know what I'm talking about. But you have the power, just like everything else we've talked about in this series, you have the power through Christ to turn that thing on its end and say, no, it will not master me. I will not be enslaved to debt or to money or shiny things or sales or whatever. I will own it. I will be the master of it. It is a conscious choice you have to make on yourself. Now, like I said, there's nothing I can say today or do for you today that's going to give you everything you need to know, but we want to help you. If you're at a place where you're like, I need out of this, I got to figure out how to say no, I want to say no, I don't know how to. I want a budget, I don't know how to. We want to help you with that. Brandon has a number of times gone through the Financial Peace University, Dave Ramsey course. We've had that here multiple times. He's ready to do it again if we have people who need help, who want help. So let us know. Let him know, let me know, send the church an email, whatever. Write it on your Connect slip, do whatever it takes. If we have people who are ready to do this, we will help you. It took a long time to blow up all 42 of those helium balloons, right? It's going to take a while to let all that helium out and let you land safely, but we want you to land safely, not crash and burn. That's the secret. It'll be disciplined over a number of months, maybe years, depends on your situation, but it can be reversed and you can be helped, and that will free you up to not be a slave. It'll free you up to do all kinds of kingdom work that right now you're not able to do, that you want to do, and we'll help you with that. So let us know. You don't have to be a slave. That's what the series is all about. We are not enslaved. Let's stand together and